All right, let's just jump right in. We are living through this insane acceleration of AI. Our machines are getting faster and faster, but our own minds, well, they're running on hardware that hasn't had an upgrade in thousands of years. And that creates this huge conflict, a real bottleneck that's going to define how we interact with technology for years to come.
And just look at the scale of this problem. It's wild. On one side, you've got AI that can spit out over 14,000 words a minute. And on the other side, us. Our conscious, deliberate thought clocks in at a measly 10 bits per second. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. It's a fundamental mismatch between the speed of silicon and the pace of human biology.
And this mismatch, it actually has a name, the 10-bit bottleneck. You see, our senses are taking in 1 billion bits of information every single second, but our conscious mind acts like this ultra-strict filter, boiling it all down to a tiny, focused stream. Now, for most of human history, that was our superpower. But today, it's the biological wall we keep slamming into when we try to work with these incredibly fast AI systems.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How are we, with our 10-bit brains, supposed to keep up? How do you even begin to collaborate with something that thinks millions of times faster than you do? This is the core challenge we're going to unpack right now.
And finding an answer is getting more urgent every single day because the pressure on this bottleneck is only getting worse. And that's because AI itself is changing. It's moving beyond being a simple tool and becoming something much, much more powerful, an AI agent.
You can actually see this evolution pretty clearly. We started with AI as a tool. You give it a command, it does the thing. Then we got the Copilot, which is more like an assistant helping you out with tasks. But this new era, this is the age of the agent. An AI that can actually plan things out, do the work, and even fix its own mistakes across a whole complex project.
And that's what agentic AI is all about. So stop thinking of it as one tool and start thinking of it like a whole team of digital employees. You might have one agent that's a researcher, another that's a planner, and a third that's a reviewer. And they all work together to hit a goal you've set without you having to micromanage every little step.
And what that leads to is a totally new way of structuring work. We're starting to see what people are calling the Centaur team, a small group of humans that are basically conducting an orchestra of AI agents. Your job isn't just doing the work anymore. It's about setting the vision and managing the digital workforce that brings it to life.
But okay, here is the paradox. These amazing, powerful agentic systems, the ones designed to make our lives easier, are actually creating a really deep and unique challenge for the very human minds they're supposed to be helping.
And this gets us to a real dilemma. On the one hand, AI offers us cognitive offloading, the promise that it'll handle all the boring stuff and free up our brain power for bigger things. But on the other hand, it's threatening us with cognitive overload, a state where we become so reliant on these systems that we actually start to lose our own ability to think deeply, to reflect, and to be resilient.
Let's break that down a bit. We're talking about a real risk of losing our ability to just sit and think if an app can just tell us how we feel. We might start outsourcing our resilience, basically forgetting how to handle stress on our own. And the weird part is, all this hyper-monitoring from our devices, it can actually create more anxiety, not less.
And look, this isn't just a vague feeling. It's backed by some pretty solid science. There's this thing called cognitive load theory, and it shows that our working memory, think of it like your brain's RAM or its mental scratch pad, is incredibly small. We can only hold about 3 to 5 new pieces of information at any one time. If you try to push past that, your performance doesn't just get a little worse, it completely collapses.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. AIs have a similar limit, though it's much, much bigger. It's called the context window. So both humans and AIs are what you'd call bounded processors. When you overload our active workspace, whether it's our tiny working memory or the AI's huge context window, we both fail. For us, we get distracted, we start making mistakes. For the AI, it starts getting incoherent, it forgets what you told it 5 minutes ago.
So if we both have these limits, and the speed gap between us is just massive, how do we build a bridge? How do we finally break through that 10-bit bottleneck and create a partnership that's actually intelligent?
Well, the first step is a completely new way of thinking. We need to adopt what researchers are calling bounded agent complementarity. It's a fancy term, but the idea is simple. Stop treating AI like some perfect, infallible machine and start treating it like a partner that has its own limits. The real goal isn't just to dump work on the AI, it's to smartly and dynamically balance the mental workload across the entire team, human and machine.
And for this to work, our role has to completely change. In the old model, we were the gatekeeper.
We were this slow, manual bottleneck, having to approve every single little thing the AI did. The new model? It casts us as an intelligent router. The AI takes care of all the high-confidence, routine stuff on its own, and our job is to step in and handle the exceptions, the tricky parts, the high-stakes calls that really need human judgment.
But here's the thing. Even if we're great routers, using keyboards and just reading text is way too slow. This table really shows you why. Our conscious thought and our speech are pretty low bandwidth channels. But look at our visual perception. It's cranking at 1 billion bits per second. So to keep up, we have to start using our highest bandwidth senses. We need to be able to see what the AI systems are doing, not just read a report about it later.
And that line of thinking leads us to the second solution. And, well, this one's going to sound a bit like sci-fi. We're talking about brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. These are systems that literally create a direct communication link between the human brain and a computer, completely bypassing the slow, physical bottlenecks of having to type or speak.
And I know it sounds futuristic, but this idea has actually been around for a very long time. The first human brain signals were recorded almost 100 years ago. By the 70s, scientists proved that basic control was possible. And today, right now, we're seeing early demos of decoding inner speech, literally reading the words you're thinking but not saying out loud.
The potential here is it's absolutely transformative. There was a recent study where a BCI allowed a person with paralysis to communicate at 62 words per minute, just by thinking. That is almost the speed of a natural conversation. It's restoring a fundamental human ability that was lost. It's incredible.
But of course, with that kind of power comes some massive ethical responsibilities. We have to start asking some really big questions, like, what is cognitive liberty? Do you have a right to control your own private thoughts? How do we stop accidental thought leakage? Researchers are already working on ideas, like password-protected thoughts, believe it or not. But these are conversations we all need to be having as this tech becomes reality.
So as we start to merge our minds and our machines, what are the actual practical things we can do right now to make sure this partnership is a healthy one? How do we keep humanity in the loop?
Well, we can start with 5 key principles. First, we have to start managing cognitive load for the whole team, not just the people. Second, align the work with what each is good at. Let the AI scan massive data sets, let humans handle weird new situations. Third, use a shared digital space so the whole plan isn't just stuck in one person's head. Fourth, build safety and governance in from the very beginning. And finally, we have to foster AI literacy, so everyone actually understands how these things think.
All of which leaves us with one last, kind of provocative thought. As we break that 10-bit bottleneck, as our minds and our machines get more and more connected, we're not just building better tools. We might actually be creating a new kind of human, an integrated individual, where our biological brain and artificial intelligence start to merge into something new. And what that future looks like? Well, that's the question we are all going to be answering together.